Jonathan, good evening. What do you make of this? Obviously, the special counsel, it's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back, refiling another indictment here.
Yeah, it's the shrinkflation indictment. It's the same packaging, just less product inside. And what they did is kept the four charges, and they just took out any evidence that clearly would have contradicted the Supreme Court's decision on presidential immunity. It does not hold together, in my view, very well. I don't even think it solves the problem. For example, he's keeping in, as one of the four main allegations, Trump's communications with and to Pence. That's still presumptively protected under the Supreme Court decision. He also includes communications with members of Congress. That could also trip a wire. The first two main theories deal with state officials and the slates, the alternative slates that Trump's team was pushing. So he doesn't really get out of the problem that so many still see with this. What's also interesting, Brett, is he keeps the charges of obstruction of official proceedings. There was a second case, the Fisher case, that dramatically narrowed how prosecutors can bring that charge. They have to essentially allege tampering of evidence or destruction of evidence. It's not clear how he's going to thread that needle on those charges.
Hey, welcome back. It's your man Wise, and today we got to talk about it, man. We got to talk about it. We're checking out a video from our guy, Dr. Steve Turley. Jack Smith. Really? I thought this was over with. I thought he'd be moving on, but yet he brought back these charges. And in my opinion, he just torpedoed the Democrats' campaign. He just torpedoed Kamala Harris's campaign. The link to the full video will be in the description box below. Make sure you go over and support Dr. Steve Tully, this dude, or Turley. He's doing great work out here in these streets. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's go.
As if things couldn't possibly get worse for the fledgling Kamala campaign, now this! An utterly desperate Jack Smith throws out a new indictment that's even worse and more pathetic than the previous one that the Supreme Court shot down. We're going to see what's really going on behind the scenes here and why this superseding indictment is turning out to be Kamala's worst nightmare. Self-anointed defenders of democracy strike again. Yesterday afternoon, special counsel Jack Smith filed what's called a superseding indictment against President Trump. A superseding indictment is simply a second one after the first one gets dismissed. It's a new indictment that's several pages shorter than the original one, precisely because Smith had to omit so much evidence due to the Supreme Court's presidential immunity ruling. That's basically stripped him of any case. As it turns out, this one is even more pathetic. It's even weaker than the previous one, if that were even possible. Trump's response to this travesty, of course, was absolute fire. He tweeted out, "It is DOJ policy that the Department of Justice should not take any action that will influence an election within 60 days of that election, but they just have taken such action. Voting starts on September 6th. Therefore, the DOJ has violated its own policy. Election interference. All of these Comrade Kamala Biden hoaxes should be immediately dismissed." Dismissed. And he's absolutely right. This is blatant election interference on the part of the Justice Department. And ironically, it's an interference that's working the other way. It's frankly the greatest gift Trump could be given right now. I mean, let's just be blunt here. I'm just going to say this up front. This was the very last thing that Kamala would have wanted to happen today. This indictment. This is the very last thing that the fledgling Kamala campaign would want to happen. Somehow, some way, Jack Smith did not get the memo that Alvin Bragg got, right? Just days ago, the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, conceded that the New York court should postpone the sentencing of Trump, which is currently scheduled to occur on September 18th, until after the election. Bragg admitted that in light of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, much of the evidence that he introduced into the court has been in effect wiped out. And so he agreed. He's recommending that sentencing for Trump be postponed until after the election. And everyone who saw that recognized that Bragg was actually admitting that the lawfare they used to try to take Trump out was a total and complete failure. That letter from Bragg to the Manhattan judge was a blatant admission. It was a confession that the weaponized lawfare has boomeranged against them. It's an admission that the only thing this campaign of weaponized legalism has accomplished was a massive backlash of sympathy towards Trump. That is what this caving from Bragg represents. It doesn't have a whit to do with his concern over a right application of the law and justice and fairness. What a total crock. This letter was a full-on retreat. Now, if that's the case, then there does appear to be a conflict within the political class on how best to deal with a surging Trump. Bragg decided to drop the whole darn thing, quit while you're behind, as it were, whereas Jack Smith seems to be doubling down on stupid, doing more of the same, the very definition of insanity. So there does seem to be a very real clash within the permanent political class on how best to deal with a surging Trump and a collapsing Kamala. And that is actually what both Bragg and Smith appear to agree on. That the one thing they agree on, they're both admitting in their own contradictory ways that Trump is absolutely poised to win this election. Again, just as a reminder, Trump has never been in such a strong position to win the White House ever. Not even close. Not in 2016, not in 2020, as he is right now. Trump is more popular today than he's ever been, and they obviously don't trust Kamala to get the job done.
They definitely don't. And it could be a situation to where they're grasping for straws. And that's why all of a sudden this case rears its ugly head again. And maybe it could be a situation to where Jack Smith just didn't get the memo, or maybe he's out there on his own going rogue against the party. I highly doubt that that's the case, though. I highly doubt that that's the case, because the people on the left, they don't go rogue. They understand that if they do, they risk their future. They risk everything if they go against what the party says that they can't and can't do. That's just the truth. So my thoughts are one or two things. Somebody in the Democrat Party, somebody high up has decided, hey, let's take one more crack at Donald Trump. Let's get this out here. Let's try to smear his name. This will maybe take some pressure off Kamala Harris leading up to her faux sham of an interview with CNN that's going to happen in the next couple of days. Maybe it'll be something else that can be used during the debate that is supposed to happen September 10th. We don't know if that will actually happen now. Maybe it's something along those lines. That's my thoughts. That's my guess. Or it could be a situation to where Jack Smith had decided that he's going to go rogue and he's going to make a name for himself no matter what. Either way, it's not going to work. President Trump's popularity is, it's soaring right now amongst all people throughout this country from all walks of life. Doesn't matter if you're a black man, black woman, white man, white woman, Hispanics, Latinos out there. People are starting to rock with Donald Trump, especially as the Harris campaign slow leaks some of these foolish policies. The no tax on tip things, she stole it from Trump, but she was the deciding factor on taxing and going after these people's tips. Oh, yeah. The tax on unrealized capital gains, that's a huge no-no right there. And the foolery that happened last week at the DNC, where there were no real conversation around policies and how they're going to right the ship of this country, that's a huge problem right there. That is a huge problem for a whole heck of a lot of Americans, because there was a lot of people that watched that thing 4 days straight and they didn't hear anything of substance. They didn't hear a word of actual policy, and they didn't hear anything about how they're going to turn this country around, because there's a lot of people that are hurting right now. a whole heck of a lot.
But regardless, make no mistake, this superseding indictment is the last thing the fledgling Kamala campaign wanted, because all it's going to do now is give voters more of a reason to galvanize around Trump. I mean, take a look at Nicole Shanahan's tweet here. Robert Kennedy's VP candidate. Take a look at what she just tweeted out, literally within hours in response to the sham indictment. Quote, "I'll admit, I used to kind of roll my eyes when people claimed that President Trump was being, quote, persecuted. It's because I was looking at it through the distorted filter of the media. Well, I just completed my first cross-examination in our second New York ballot access case, where the DNC-aligned PAC attorneys questioned me like a criminal. Okay, I get it now. Our justice system is clearly being co-opted and abused by nefarious people with malevolent political agendas. This superseding indictment is yet another reason for people like Nicole to galvanize around Trump. Remember, Trump himself said he was just one indictment away from winning the White House. Every time he's indicted, his polls go up. Every time. We talked about this from the vantage point of political demographics. Whether anyone likes it or not, indictments endear Trump to non-white working class voters. Indictments endear Trump to non-white working class voters. And the reason for that is simple. Roll the tape.
I've talked to many people who formerly identified as a Democrat. They have changed their political persuasion to independent, and they are looking forward to voting for Trump. Wow. Because now they find something in common with a political candidate at that level.
When you say they find commonality, what is that commonality?
They have felt persecuted by the system of American injustice. And it's not a stretch for them to think that Trump may be a victim as well. People see that there's some kind of commonality between himself and maybe all the black men that have been incarcerated and the families that have been impacted by black male incarceration.
So there you have it. For millions of particularly non-white working class voters, Trump's indictment.
Well, you also got a lot of brothers out there that they have gone through this. They've gone through this system. They know what it looks like, and they know foolishness when they see it. Point blank, period. So when people say, oh, yeah, what Trump is going through, it resonates. Like, when you go and you actually look at the charges, it just doesn't make sense. Things aren't adding up. And the American people are not stupid people. As much as the mainstream media, as much as Kamala Harris will say young people are stupid, as much as the Democrats think that black folks are stupid, especially black men, we're not. We may not have all the education that everybody has formally, but we for damn sure have a whole heck of a lot of common sense in comparison.
Particularly that mugshot made him instantly one of them. Voters who have consistently voted Democrat are now voting Trump almost solely based on the fact that that image made him one of them. And again, you don't have to think too hard as to why. If you ask non-white voters, how many New York billionaire former presidents do you know, right? The answer, of course, is zero. But if you ask them, how many people do you know that have been abused by the law, who've been abused by a rigged legal system? Well, that's different. They know plenty. Mm-hmm. At some point in their lives, they know plenty of people who've been arrested for nefarious reasons. In other words, and this is what Robert Barnes likes to say, that mugshot transferred Trump from one cultural space, the New York billionaire former president, to another cultural space, someone legally persecuted by an unfair and unjust rigged system. And that transference has endeared Trump to voters that would never have given him the time of day prior to it. So obviously, this move by Jack Smith was actually the last thing that this fledgling Kamala campaign wanted. They did not want to give yet another excuse for voters to rally around Trump.
No.
First, you had the Kennedy realignment, then the Tulsi Gabbard, a former DNC chair endorsing Trump. It's taking all this wind out of the sails of the convention, which was supposed to give Kamala a double-digit bump. She literally got nothing from it. In fact, her polls went down. Her polls went down as the week progressed. Trump's polls went up and her polls went down. All the momentum is swinging to Trump. And the last freaking thing that Kamala needed was Jack Smith to climb out from under his rock and give people another excuse and another reason to rally around Trump.
He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. But last week at the DNC, like I said earlier, the DNC, it was full of a bunch of fluff. It was full of a bunch of shills, full of a bunch of people that have been paid to support Kamala Harris and the Democrat Party. It didn't look real. Nothing about it seemed genuine. Nothing about it looked authentic. And that's the reason why she didn't get a bump. And then the fact that the DNC ended on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no town halls, no press conferences, no meetings with any journalists from the press. And here we are Wednesday going on Thursday, a week after, and still none of the above has happened. Still, none of the above has happened. And the people are wondering, what the heck is going on? Why is this lady afraid to talk to us? Why is this lady afraid to sit down with mainstream media journalists? Why will she not sit down and do any press conferences? What the heck is going on? What is she hiding? The American people aren't stupid. Some folks may have been born, you know what I'm saying, at night, but not necessarily last night. And when you have people like Charlamagne the God or Charlamagne the Fraud, who is a shield for the Democrat Party, when he's coming out saying, what's going on? Why isn't she speaking to the constituents? Why isn't she speaking to the American people? I'm going to keep saying it, man. I'm going to keep harping on it. If you are a feminist out there that truly believe that women are equal, just as smart, just as capable of leadership, you need to be clamoring. You need to be yelling. You need to be yelling from the rooftops that this lady sit down and start speaking to the American people. You are running for president, ma'am. And she needs to be treated and she needs to be conducting herself no different than any other candidate out there that has ever ran for president. Period. You have another sister that came out and was like, well, everybody else had 400 and 500 days and 600 days before they jumped out there and when they launched their campaign. We all get that. The situation that she's in, it's unique, but it's also a situation that she's in because of the Democratic Party. She's in that situation because of the DNC. But that's even more of a reason why she should have already spoke to the people. She should have already done, by this point now, if she was really serious about being the president, she would have already talking to 2, 3, different journalists out there for interviews. She would have held a town hall to tell people like, hey, I'm here and this is what I plan on doing. She would have done a lot of these things already if she really wanted to be taken seriously as a woman that could lead this country. But it's pretty obvious that that isn't something that she wants to do. And the person that's in charge of her campaign, they probably think they're doing her a service, but in all actuality, they're doing her a disservice. And to be honest with you, they're doing a disservice to all women out there. She's going to lose this race. And they're going to go back and people are going to say, oh, she didn't win because she was a woman or she was a woman of color or she was a black woman or whatever. That's not the reason why she's not going to win. I mean, her policies stink. The economy is terrible right now. And the Biden-Harris administration has been a detriment to this country. But the other reason why she's not going to win is because she was afraid to get out there and speak to the American people. She was afraid to face the American press, no different than anybody else has ever faced them if they wanted to become president. That is part of the job. This lady literally showed up to a job interview, sat down, crossed her arms and said, I don't got to talk to y'all. Make that make sense. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I appreciate all the love and support. Consider joining the ARP family. It supports me, the team, the channel, gives us the ability to do what we do on a day-to-day basis, man. Shout out to Dr. Steve Turley. Please go over to his channel. Check him out. Give him a like if this is the first time that you've seen him before. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.